So what's going to come up is did you do everything you can do? That's the difference between here's what your response demonstrates our clients fucking dumbass. Look for that. Use corn and fun. Hey, Booty, it's Gary. Hey, man, I've been trying to catch up with you. So, all right, so you got your two people in this EMR class, Yarden and, okay, so, I mean, like, Yarden hasn't done shit in like 10 days, 12 days online. I mean, like, the class is basically over. I don't know what he's doing. And Jordan, she's still plugging away at it. She's on week 5. We're going to give everybody another week to get everybody file reviewed. I was hoping you could maybe call up and put a little fire under their ass. Yeah, I'm working with Powerback. Looks like it's got this fever. We're approaching getting ready to test those guys. It's not something we haven't seen before. So, um, you get it happens. So it's keep saying it's human nature, I guess. So they people, this class kind of that's what this class kind of does. I think it's all what it is. Class, but it is painted off. That requires people to get the right to go inside for what you're here to do. Work with it. You don't need to be out there telling them what to do all the time. They just need to tell stuff on their own. You know, and direct their independent actions towards your goal. That's how you do it. That's not that always worked out. But confidence one thing to know. If you're honest, always minutes that's in person they look good. In fact, in person they were smarter than everybody else. Okay. It's the online part that dragging ass on them. So I've seen shit pick up the pace. I mean, I'm hoping they're gonna continue. I think I can probably get it to pass. Uh by just trying to like finish the shot. I can't fire you until they finish it. But I had one of the things on it. Yeah, that's cool. And then, oh yeah, something else. I got an EMR. Okay, she's already licensed. She came through our program. Okay. Here I'm thinking part time. Full time. Full time. I think he needs a bigger phone than this phone blocker. No, it's not very. I'm on a screen. And it does it like go. So of course not like a dresser is not common. So probably appreciate that. But I mean it's somebody to try anyway. She's gonna go through EMT, and she's not dumb. She's not dumb. She was trying to go to medical school. I'll do it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I thought, yeah, she was like, you know anybody that I like where she lives, and Alpharetta, I think she spent some time in Decatur, so she quite know everything. And probably very familiar with the area. Uh, y'all have one. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Can y'all hear me okay? Oh, hold on a second. Hey, Moody. No, that figures. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. 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 Cool. Okay. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Well, look, I mean, they came out of my class and they took the test, they took the course and then passed the test. I would think highly of them. That's, we're pretty much, they're like, we don't really put out shit bags. You have to have a certain amount of personal initiative to get to the where we to get past EMR and EMT. We definitely filter out the fuck up people out of here. We do that. So definitely do that for you. Cool. Okay. Okay. All right, man. All right. Take care. All right. See you. Bye bye. All right. Sorry about that. All right. So we got two people in here. Wow, we're not going to be here all night. Okay. So hopefully, I think one of your classmates said he was sick. So we'll see what happens with. with this. But anyway, let's move on. So first and foremost, I would like to know, do you guys actually like this format? Let me just ask a doing a poll. Do you like the format? All right. All right, cool. All right. All right. What could I do better? Can anybody think of anything that we could do better? Another thing that we need to talk about here is we're going to talk about a couple of things. Number one, we need to talk about your progress with these assignments. Okay, maintain a slow and yeah, I hear you. It's kind of so there is a delay on this. So that's another it's kind of an issue that we run into with this is that um, there's a delay at least um, with the voice, so it does kind of stop and start a little bit. Okay, so my question here is, why are you guys not doing anything online? What's going on with that? So I'll type it in here. I mean, honestly, this is a problem that we run into with all of our programs. You have to understand something here, okay? You're already getting over, okay? You're getting over. Jonathan, you know that you're getting over, right? Rebecca, both of you guys have been through somebody else's EMS program. You know you're getting over, okay? But what we require you to do is we require you to do shit on your own, okay? We feel like that's a good skill or a good character trait to have if you're going to work on an ambulance. Okay, that's just something. That's just an. I got you. So, I mean, this is some. This is like we have to beg everybody to do their online work with EMR. We have to beg them to do with AEMT. It's like, oh, I mean, you have to understand. It's most of the class. This is basically an online class that has in-person meetings. Is what this whole thing is. When if you look at the amount of time that you're going to spend online versus the amount of time you spend in class, like it doesn't. It's a lot. Okay, it's much more. It's probably this class is 80% online. Okay, uh, all we've done we put a bunch of work on there, but without your doing it, we can't do it for you. We can't do the work for you, and just showing up to class is not enough. Okay, get to think about it. Like if you're this is a 220-hour class as it was approved by the state office. Look, you know that the state office is going to fucking see me at the end of this month in beginning of February, and they want to fucking shut us down. Okay, and one of the things they don't like about our program is that, well, how do you know that they spent the amount of time that they were supposed to spend on this stuff? And you have to go back and it makes it really difficult to um, it makes it really tough to um, defend defend this program to them. They definitely don't like this. Okay, they look at this as like a certificate mill that we just bust people through, and it really isn't like that. And they just don't understand. I don't think they're ever going to understand. But people not doing their assignments definitely doesn't make it easy for me. All right. So the next bit is the clinicals. So you guys know that you got to do You're going to have to do clinicals. Would you like to see a demonstration of how to sign up for the site or how to select the dates? Or where are you at with that? Well, if you would you like to, I'm going to show you. I'm going to demonstrate how to sign up for clinicals. Okay. You did. Did you select dates? Because I don't see any. Let's see. Oh no, there you are. You signed up for three. You signed up for 30. You signed up for 36 hours. You need um you need 48 hours. Let me explain to you the requirements. You're supposed to have 48 hours, 20 patient contacts, two contacts have to be pediatrics. Okay? That's what we need. Okay, so you signed up for 36. You need to sign up for one more, and you need to make sure you go to them. Okay, and also when you go to them, make sure that you do the preceptor evaluation, which basically, if you look at your ID badge, there is a little a QR code on there, and you just scan the QR code with your hand. Scan the QR code with your phone, and there's a little FTO form that's on there, and get them to fill out that form. Uh, all right, so I'm going to sign in as I'll just go in here as one of you guys. Oh, here's Benjamin. He won't mind. Okay, so all right, so look, you go on here and you select. So what you'll do is you'll go on here, you'll select um, sign up for and complete clinical rotations. I think I actually signed up for one twice. It was showing. Oh, I'll take a look at yours. Hold on. Yeah, you did. Okay, I deleted one of them for you. Okay. Okay. All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to go on here and you're just going to click sign up for and complete clinical rotations. Request a different clinical site, and it's going to show you the list of ones that we have on there. The you pick one of them on here to sign up for, and then our registrar has to go back and make sure that they have to send you the patient the clinic the actual report, or send you the actual paperwork for each site because each site's apparent has different clinical requirements. So some of them require a form or something along those lines. Okay, all right. I'm not, okay. There you go. I'm done beating the fuck out of you. It's over. Yeah, you need to do two more. That's correct. So you need two more clinicals. The That's what we need. So I'm tired. So there you go. I'm done. I'm got it out of my system. I'm all better now. Let's go on with what we were supposed to talk about. Okay. All right. So hopefully you guys are logging into. my Gymsys Elite. So let's go ahead and do that. mygymsys.org/elite. Organization is Georgia. And you log in with your username and password. Make sure that everybody is on the correct agency. And let's go ahead and just do a canceled call, okay? Let's start with it. Just do it. Just bang out a canceled call to make sure you guys are on here. Okay. So I want you to. All right. So I'm gonna see that. I want you to do that right now. Okay. So go ahead and bang out a canceled call with no information on it. Okay. No problem. They don't want you log in. All right. No problem. All right. Let me see what I can figure out for you. Okay. All right. Jonathan, are you logging in with this? All right. So your username is jpar. I'm gonna just email you your username. Okay. I don't want this. I don't want everybody in the world seeing all this shit. Jpar. No problem. I'm gonna reset your password, but I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it where you can see it on here. Okay. So no. Check your email. I just sent you an email. All right, Rebecca's on it. You get it, Jonathan? Hey, hold on a second. Would you give me a call? Hey, hello. Did you did you yeah, EASY 123. JPAR, are you capitalizing JP and JPAR? And you're on mygenesis.org. Let me see if I can log in here. Yeah, I know. It's a lot to do. It's kind of a pain in the ass to deal with that, but it's the only way you can really do like a lot of the stuff that I wanted to do on here. Because if you do like Zoom or whatever, there's limitations to what it can do. You know. Okay, look, it just it now it required a new email. I think you're I don't I use it's all lowercase on easy123. It's case sensitive. I just logged in and it's fine. I'm in there as you. I did it. I'm logging out. It's image stream mygenesis.org/elite. Should ask you. Yeah, yeah, that's probably definitely the problem. MyGenesis in Georgia, right? Yep. You can change it to whatever you want it to at this point, but all right. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, there you go. Okay. All right. Yeah. Go ahead. Do you remember how to do a canceled call on there? Yeah. Go ahead and bang out a canceled call. That way we're all on the same sheet of music. Okay. Okay. All right. Cool. All right. See you. Bye. Oh no. Oh. All right, Rebecca. What's going on? Would you like me to bail you out? Okay, I'll wait. See if you can figure it out. I'll give you guys a minute to run through this, okay? We're not trying to bust your ass or anything. All right, let's see where we're at. Yay! Okay, great. You guys are done. Good job. Yay! Okay, moving right along. All right, all right, I think you guys got that. You want to do one more, or you got it? Let's do it. Okay. Here's what we're gonna do. So watch the movie. I'm gonna kind of narrate it. Again, I never got any better AI videos, so I'm sorry about that. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and crank up another patient care report. All right, so what do I do that for? All right, so here we go. We are sitting in this bullshit looking Canadian slash European fire station, and they're checking out their ambulance, which is weird. And whatever. Yeah, I got you. We're gonna work on it. All right. So they get on the radio, and then they are talking back and forth, and then or they clear on the call, and then they go to the call, and apparently there's somebody else driving the vehicle. I don't really know either that or I'm not quite sure what's going on here. Okay, and then the call gets updated and says we are canceling, and they're like, oh, what do you think's going on? And apparently there's two people in the back seat. I don't know if you'll notice that, and so now they're having to talk about it. All right, and so this guy's apparently I don't. All right, so that is the story. So what we're running here is a canceled call. Okay, and um, so that is what we're going. Now let's take. I want this to become a little bit more realistic for you. Okay, so um, let's make this an actual call that kind of happened. Okay. All right, so let's just say that it is 2 a.m., okay? And you work on Med 1, okay? And I wish I had the scenario loaded in here, but apparently AI takes a little bit more work and patience than I thought. All right, so I'm going to take you to a place where we used to run this type of call all the time, and that was in Decatur. All right, and so, oh, fucking Bing, really? All right, so I want to take you to I want to take you to a spot here in Decatur where we used to where we would run calls, and this mysterious event would happen all the time. Okay, all right, and that's why, and Rebecca, that's why we're here. Was the we're here to learn how to write a good narrative and actually how to write a good PCR, a patient care report. Okay, so we're just going to do it one call at a time. So yeah, we did a canceled call, but let's talk about this call for a minute. Okay, so this is a call we used to run quite a bit. Okay. And what would happen here is we were here over here at 285 and I-20. All right. And what would happen, and look, this is a very busy interchange right here. It's not quite as well done as um, Spaghetti Junction, obviously, but this is a very, very busy intersection. In fact, a lot of traffic goes through here every single day. In fact, most of the people that work in Atlanta, just so you know, Atlanta, the people that very few people actually live in Atlanta. Most people live either on to the east of the 75 or they live to the west. And so we are dealing with all these people that live. So all these people are moving here are living as far out and driving to Atlanta as far as Conyers. People live in Conyers and drive all the way to Atlanta. They literally do this every single day. And you can see that there's very few good east and west thoroughfares along this stretch. There is there's I-20 is here, and then running parallel to I-20, you have this road, Covington Highway. Okay, it kind of winds around there. And Covington Highway is a big 4-lane road, and um, so this is the story of this area is everybody lives, a lot of people live to the east of this and they go to Atlanta. All right. So, um, but that's what we're trying to talk about here is let's say, but this is at 2 o'clock in the morning. Everybody went home, right? And that's kind of this time of the day is pretty desolate. So what'll happen here is you'll get a call, and again, like who could be driving on this road at 2 o'clock in the morning? It could be somebody from another state. It could be somebody who's drunk, which DeKalb is infamous for drunk drivers like every fucking where. And if you ever drive through DeKalb, watch out for the drunk drivers. They're friggin' everywhere. All right. For a long time, the police department would not even pull over somebody that was drunk, and he was just constantly. um, weaving in and out of traffic. All right. So anyway, so you got so the call comes out a um as a car was traveling was going to get on 285 northbound from I-20 westbound. So which basically places the car over here somewhere, and it's going to try to get on this exit ramp and go on there. When you deal with the interstate system, you have to know: am I on the exit ramp? Am I on the egress ramp? Am I on the exit ramp? Um, or entry ramp or exit ramp is kind of what you have to understand. So, and it gets really confusing, as I'm sure Jonathan's probably very familiar with. You guys probably spent a lot of time driving around looking for people. Okay, and so this is really no different. And so here's your call. You guys got on there. So you, Engine One, Med One, and the police department drove all through this area at 2 o'clock in the morning looking for a car accident. And look at all the different places this car could have veered off the road, and it could have gotten out of your line of sight. And like I said, this actually happened quite. That actually probably still happens if you look at a lot of these interstate, a lot of these different interstate um, landscaping that they've been doing. They've clear cut a lot of areas like these little islands and stuff like that to try to get rid of people like living in the islands. Because as like especially during COVID, there was just such a there's a huge amount of homelessness, right? People living in their cars and stuff like that. So this whole deal with these little bum encampments that are all over the place. Living on these places. That was one of the reasons why they cut down on those trees was because of the homeless. But it's also a good place to die. So let's say that you guys drove we went through up and down every exit ramp, egress ramp, and we could not find the car. No patient at scene. All right, but so exactly. So what do you need to what do you need to worry about with when you run a call like that? What exactly are the concerns? And you have to think about when you write a patient care report, it can't you can, like just following some kind of garbage in, garbage out soap chart, um, SOTC format. It's like it doesn't really help. Or auto narrate is even worse. Auto narrate because it really doesn't answer the question that the narrative was designed to. So writing the call is going to be easy. This is just an extension of the report that we already that we've done. We're just basically adding another layer to it where we're actually going to write a narrative. Okay. And so, what would you write in the narrative like that? So it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and despite the fact that Engine One, Medic One, and the police have driven all through this area, we have been unable to locate a patient. What would you write in your narrative? And I want you to tell me what you would write because I'm going to tell you that I'm going to make this a little more interesting after you do. You guys still with me? There you go. Okay, good. All right, you need to break down where you searched. Excellent. Now, let me ask you a question, Jonathan. Do you think that the dispatcher can keep up with that information? Does that some basic standard issue standard information that a dispatcher can maintain. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good. Something. Oh, great. All right. So you want to know where it was this? All right. So what about Rebecca? Where are you weighing on this? Oh, hey Ben. Hey, Ben showed up. All right. So here's what. So here. So now I'm going to make this a little bit more interesting for you. Okay. All right. So all right. I'm going to make this a little bit more interesting for you. The next 2 days later, construction workers who are working on this part of this bridge that's over here have found a car that met the description of the um, with a dead body in it. So it's right here. There you go. So that day they found a car. They found a dead body. They found a car with, and the dead body is a teenager. Okay, so right there. Okay, so now that you know that, now that you know what's going to happen 2 days or 3 days from now, now what information? To now, who do you think is going to read this report? I mean, think about the implications here. Right. Think about the implications here. The So did you do enough to find the car? What was done? You guys drove around the area. You just responded to a call. So the big question that's going to be asked, especially by the family members, now look, the law enforcement doesn't give a shit. Okay, it's like, well, they couldn't find him, so they found him here 2 days later. Okay, so what? Well, see, you never see. That's the thing. You never made contact with the patient. That's what I'm saying. This happened. You didn't actually find the patient dead. Because you never found the patient. Okay. So the people I think who are going to read this report will be the accident investigator. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with the people that investigate um, fatal car accidents. All right. So an accident investigator is a specially trained police officer who is Georgia. The especially trained police officer that no longer patrols an area. This guy actually just posts up somewhere and he just responds to fatal car accidents. So if you've ever, I mean, you guys, if you've ever sat in traffic and they shut down the whole highway for 3 hours because somebody died in a car accident, it's because they did not want to interfere with the work of the accident investigator. So the accident investigator is going to show up in Georgia. This falls under the jurisdiction of the Georgia State Patrol. They have a special unit that comes out and investigates this at every and each and every I guess they would have one accident investigator for each um, state patrol barracks or whatever. I don't know how they do it, but anyway, that's who does that. DeKalb. So this is never. It's almost never a local police enforcement. However, if a jurisdiction had a large enough police department, I would imagine that there would probably be an accident investigation unit like Los Angeles Police Department and New York, or New York City Police Department. I would imagine would have some type of accident investigation team there. I would think. Okay, but anyway, this is probably the state patrol. Anyway, so this guy's going to come out. So you know that the accident investigator is going to read this, and you know that probably the coroner is going to read it, and probably the family is eventually going to read it. Okay, and who's going to have real questions about this? Probably the family. Okay, and so really, who are we actually writing this? So we never made contact with the patient. All right, I just want you to understand that. We just discovered this 3 days later. So, what could have been done in order for us to find this patient in this accident? Did we actually do everything that was possible to find this person in this accident? Yeah, we drove around. That's what, absolutely. The media is going to be all over this. Absolutely. So did we actually use all of our resources to find this accident? I mean, think about it. What's not on your side? Motivation's not on your side. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. They just woke you up. Now you're driving around 285 and I-20. It's in the middle of the night. You can't see shit. You don't know. There's no easy way to find this, right? You're looking around, but you don't see any evidence of it. Right. No one looked in the woods, right? So like what were you supposed to do? Get out of your ambulance and look and get out and walk around and look for this accident? Were you supposed to do that? Because keep in mind, let's say the autopsy revealed that, or that the coroner just this is I'm going to make it even worse for you. The guy wasn't the kid, the teenager wasn't dead immediately. They found the car 3 days later, but he was the time of death was only 24 hours ago. So he actually laid in this car for 2 fucking days before he dropped dead. Mm, it's gonna be bad. Somebody's gonna fucking pay for this shit. Okay, and you're in the firing zone because now it can be said that well, you guys, this they didn't find him because nobody really looked for him, and so then it goes back to, well, why didn't you look for him? It's because my son is like, because you don't care about my teenage son. If this happened in a different neighborhood, would you have done something more? These are the kind of questions that come out by the public. They're kind of unfair, and that's just the way it is. So you don't want to be on the wrong side of this. Okay. So was there anything else? Was there anything else that you could have, any other resources that you could have called upon to actually help you find this person at 2 o'clock in the morning? Bingo. Yeah. All right. So let's just see what type of helicopter resources were available in DeKalb County. So in DeKalb County, let's see, does DeKalb County Police Department or somebody have an aviation unit? DeKalb County Police Aviation Unit. Okay. All right. So here's the cab. Here's the cabs. Uh, well, the fire department was already there. Yeah. All right. So here we go. Aerial support. The aerial support unit is a unit within the Special Operations Division. The primary responsibility of the aerial support unit is the routine aerial police patrol and emergency response and direct support of uniformed or criminal investigator support on the ground. Blah 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 blah. The aerial support unit consists of two state-of-the-art Eurocopter AS-350B2 helicopters. These helicopters cost about $1.2 million apiece. They are parked. Let me just tell you where they're parked. I just happen to know all about this. Okay, so um, the cab aviation unit is actually parked here. It's here at it's they park it right there at the jail. Come on. It's parked over here at it's parked on top of the DeKalb jail. See, or it's parked at the DeKalb police headquarters. Okay, which is located right there at Jim at it's right there. It's located directly across the street from here. It is. Um, it's directly across the street uh, from the DeKalb County Jail, which is located at Memorial Drive at 285. All right. So anyway, it's right there. And so basically, you see I-20's right here, and there's the helicopter. All right. So anyway, let's look at what's it. So again, like so the fire department, you'd say, why wouldn't they be responsible for it? Well, look, everybody's going to be responsible for this. Okay, that's what you don't understand. A teenage kid just died. Everybody will be responsible for this. They are looking to hang somebody for this. When people die, surprising, when people die, people want payback. Okay, that's part of the deal. So EMS, we don't get this as bad as maybe the police department, or we don't, or maybe we don't get this as bad as the fire department in some cases, but we do get it. This shit does roll downhill. And so, what if nobody else decided to call for a helicopter on this? It would have been a cool thing to call for. So what we could have done was we could have called the cab aerial to call for the cab helicopter. Let's see if they have the resources to have what we need. The helicopters have been equally equipped with the most up-to-date track and surveillance equipment. This includes a 30 million candle power night sun, and it is equipped with a FLIR 8000, which is forward-looking infrared camera. So yes, the helicopter would have been able to find this. Now, what areas will have access to a resource like this? So I will say that any major area or any major city or police jurisdiction in the state will have access to this. So in Atlanta, there are so DeKalb has two helicopters. The Atlanta Police Department has a couple of helicopters. Henry County probably has a helicopter. There's probably one for, I would say, half of the 13 county metropolitan areas probably have a helicopter. There's also in the Atlanta area the governor's helicopter. There's several DNR helicopters that could have also been called. So you don't have to know all that. You just say, dispatch, can you get a police helicopter? All right. So let's just say that we requested additional resources on this call, and, of a police helicopter. Okay. That's what we requested. And let's say that the we were denied because they were not flying due to weather. Okay, so what does that tell? So now who's on the hook now? Okay, while you're typing that in there, I'm going to go. Now we have some information to answer our call. So now let's go ahead and bang out another patient care report. So here we are. We're going to log into my and okay, I'm going to start up a new patient care report. Yeah, the police department's on the hook, not me. So now they're going to have to go back and they're going to say, well, they called for the only person that could have found this would have been the police department. And is it possible that that the fire department would not have requested that resource? Yes, it's possible because it's 2 o'clock in the morning. They don't give a shit. They just want to go back in service. This is what you're trying to keep from happening because it'd be very easy for the somebody in the general public to say, my son died because you guys just wanted to go back to sleep. That's what's on the table. Okay. And then it could have been said, well, if my son had lived in a different part of DeKalb County, then it would have been, it could have been better. Maybe they would have actually gotten up and looked. Maybe they would have given a shit about him. Maybe they would have said, maybe we can just sleep tomorrow. You see, so that's they're going to looking for somebody to blame. All right, and when you work on the ambulance, you're the lowest on the fucking low of the totem pole. All right, so we're going to make this case number is going to be uh, dead teen. All right, we're going to leave this unit notified by dispatch time blank. All right, we're going to add a crew member. I'm always adding Abdul. He's like my wingman. Okay, and then I'm going to say caregiver. Okay, and then we're going to go look at the next page. And dispatch reason is it was a motor vehicle accident. So I don't know exactly what this is. So I think we did this yesterday, and it was like traffic transportation incident. Great. Dispatch priority is emergent. EMD performed. Let's say no. What exactly? So would EMD be would EMD have been any use? How would this call have come out? This call would have came out as the patient didn't call 911 in their car accident. Somebody watched the accident happen. Okay. And now the guy's halfway to fucking Chattanooga by now, by the time we've gone through here and done all this stuff. So they're not going to be any help. Okay. So, so EMD was not performed. EMD is only done as it gives pre-arrival instructions. So the call sign was Med 1. We're a BLS ground transport, and this is the first EMS unit on scene. The response info type of service requested was 911 response to the scene. It was emergent. We made no patient contact. No patient was found. Crew disposition. Back in service, no care services required. Okay. And then we go to the incident location type is this is actually a highway. Let me just change that real quick. Should be a roadway. Here we go. Roadway, street, or highway. Okay. The location was 285 northbound, um, entry ramp from 20 westbound. And yeah, let me just tell you something. These interchange situations become really, really complicated. It gets complicated. Sometimes the interchange could be like you have to really think about what you type in there, and also you got to take into account what the dispatcher wrote, because now all this is evidence. Every bit of this is evidence. If somebody had determined that there was some kind of criminal wrongdoing here, every bit of this is evidence. What if, hey, even worse, what if it wasn't a criminal thing? What if it was a failure of a part on the vehicle that occurred? And now there's a massive nationwide recall of a tire or a brake, or or no, some component on this vehicle, and they have to get NITS involved. Okay, that's it's the implications of this patient care report are enormous. Okay, enormous. All right, so where were we on this call? I can tell you because I've been there 1,000 times. We were in Decatur, and the zip code over there is 30034. Just happen to know it. I wish I could forget it. Unfortunately, not gonna happen. Okay, and then now we got our times. All right, boom, boom, boom. Update the crew. Boom, boom, boom. All right, so when your patient care report looks like this, just let me know, okay? Because then we're gonna work on the narrative together. So let me know when you are finished, when you've made it to this point here. Very good. All right, now we're going to work on this narrative. So again, this narrative, look, there's nothing special about anything that we wrote on there. Okay. The dispatcher knows who else was dispatched to the scene. We never made it on the call. Hell, for all we know, we never didn't even see the fire truck or the other police cars. We just saw some lights flashing in different areas. We were all looking all over the place. Okay, so and keep in mind that we don't know that that there actually was a car accident and somebody died. We find out about this 3 days later. So you're just trying to go back to sleep is what you're trying to do here. The worst time of the day for this to happen, the least you're going to be the least vigilant about this, and this is when the most amount of this is when you need to be the most awake because again the implications of this call could be enormous. And look, if like if and like my thinking is that you are working on an ambulance. You're not working for the fire department, and you're not a police officer. And so that's my thinking on this. And you got to think to yourself, how insulated from liability really are you if you just work on the ambulance here? You're just an easy person to fucking flick off your nose, off your finger like a fucking booger. Okay, it takes a little bit more to get rid of a firefighter than that. So you guys are going to be, it'd be easy to screw you and not anybody else on this call. Okay, so like you got to cover your ass. The only way to cover your ass in this business is to be better than everybody else. Be better at this shit than the other people that are working on the truck, working on the fire department or whatever. That's the only way to insulate yourself against liability. Just do more than everybody else. That's going to save you. And you did that by calling for the. You did that by calling for. Calling for the police department. Nobody else would have thought of that. Not why because everybody sucks. No, because everybody's half awake. All right. All right, so here we go. EMS was dispatched. I like to use all caps. EMS dispatched to motor vehicle collision at 285. We can at and this is a good case to actually put exactly where you work. So Jonathan, you said you should put everywhere where you went. That's a very good idea. This would be the place. This would be the place to do it. So EMS dispatch to a motor vehicle collision at 285 northbound um, at the I-20 westbound egress or entry ramp. No patient was found. No patient found, despite an an extensive search, search on, search on the entry ramp, exit ramp, northbound and southbound from I-20. Other vehicles, no patient, um, EMS requested, police aviation unit to search the area with FLIR. However, they were not available. No patient found despite extensive search. And keep in mind when you wrote this, you didn't, for all you knew, there was actually no car accident. You thought this was bullshit the whole time. So kind of your attitude about this has to be sort of to fight complacency, you have to always be thinking, all right, humor me. What's the worst that could happen? Well, the worst thing that could have happened would have been the person actually drove off the side of the road and we can't see them because they're in a gully or something and they're bleeding to death and we can't see it. These are the kind of things you have to think about when you work on an ambulance, especially when you're doing like 911 calls. Okay. So that's what I would write. All right. Any additions, any questions? All right, let's see how you guys did. Okay, we're getting there. Okay, cool. Very good. All right. Okay, so any questions about that one? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Actually, yeah. So that's a good pick. That's good. Who would have called 911 the scenario, and why would they not have been informed about the location? How about the other person, the caller? Now, we don't necessarily have to. We don't necessarily. So what you'll find out is a lot of times people just call, especially car accidents. Uh, uh, so car accidents result um, in massive numbers of calls to 911 centers. Okay. So like it could have been so that they would have probably copied the numbers down. So the dispatcher would have copied the numbers of who called. But look, remember who's calling. These are people that are also on the highway. So the other callers in this particular scenario are also drivers going to other places. by the time the area is searched, they are practically in another state. Assuming that we're using highway speeds at 2 o'clock in the morning, and it's to be nothing for a car to be 50 miles away by the time everybody got there, and you guys drove up and down this road, and you guys searched for this for 30 minutes, and the cars are driving at 80 miles an hour at night. Yeah, you could easily be 50 miles away by the time you figured it all out. Okay, so that's just how it goes. So that's a particular situation. Yeah, they usually they won't do it, but yeah, you could. It could happen, and yeah, you can always call the whoever took. So it's always a resource to call. A resource to call is the caller, and so you can usually get the dispatcher to reach out to the caller to see see if they can get some more information about it or what the call was. Yeah, you're assuming that this was called by somebody that saw an accident happen at night, was not even able to identify the car. Okay, because think about it, you're driving at 2 o'clock in the morning, and a car runs off the road for some reason. How much? I mean, is it possible you wouldn't even know what color the vehicle was or what type of car it was? You just saw a car. You just saw headlights or tail lights swerve off the road. You don't see anything else. So um, you really don't have anything else to go by, especially at night. You just have nothing. Like people just disappear at fucking night on the interstate. Which interstate? It's all interstates are like that. Every single one of them. My guess is, if I had to put money on what part of the interstate system has the most number of just weird people disappearing, my guess would be South Carolina, because South Carolina's got like these areas where like you've got a bunch of major cities with absolutely nothing in the middle, and that's the way South Carolina is. Like there's like anthills with nothing in between but farms and stuff. So like the interstate you go through South Carolina can just get really desolate real quick. So and Georgia's a little more civilized, I would say, than South Carolina as far as that. But that's just my personal opinion about it. All right, so let's do another one. All right, so now we're going to run another call, and this is one where um, let's say this is a cardiac arrest. Okay, yeah. All right, so let's start with this. So as we're thinking about this, okay, what am I trying to teach you in this class about cardiac arrest? I'm trying to get you to show up, do aggressive CPR, and then terminate the arrest. Okay, that's because it's not going to happen. So this is what so kind of the routine that I want you to do. All right, so what I want you to do is I want you to respond, do CPR, do an AED, and for some period of time, and then terminate the arrest. Okay. Now I'm going to say that as an EMT, you probably don't have at least at this stage of your career, you probably don't have what it takes to terminate the arrest. Now does the American Heart Association say that BLS providers BLS providers terminate an arrest? Yes, they do. However, you kind of like I would say currently that the average EMT would be very unlikely to do that. Don't want to rock the boat. Okay, so ultimately, what ends up happening to how does this play out? Well, it plays out into this. Let me just show you. Um, it turns into um, something like this, where basically nobody wants to piss anybody off. So what you end up doing is you end up um, putting the Lucas device on there. That's kind of what this is about. This is I don't like it's not going to bring anybody back from the dead. So what they do is so what happens here, and it's the fire department's the biggest one. Here's some firemen practicing with this thing. All right, so like it can't be put on in
About
under
the
it
Lucas
can't be
3
put
today.
it can't be put on in under 10 minutes or 2 minutes or whatever. So they do this, and I don't blame the fire department for having this attitude about it because this is a fucking hopeless problem for the most part. I get it. Look, look. Let's keep in mind. Let's not judge his chest compressions because they're doing CPR on their buddy. Okay, so and he looks like he's being a really good sport about it. Okay, and we won't talk about his mask seal. And see, so look, like this is how long it's taken to put this thing on. I mean, we'd rather do all this shit than do than do chest compressions on somebody. But all this stuff has to be done before this is put on. And they would rather not bring some people back from back to life. They would rather do all this shit they'd rather do this than just do CPR for 10 minutes. Okay. So I find this entire thing to be asinine. Okay. So it takes that long to put this. It takes quite a few minutes to put this stupid thing on. So again, not a fan of the Lucas device. So what I want you to do, but keep in mind that that's what everybody else is doing. But you guys work for an ambulance service where you guys are going to you guys are primarily going to terminate arrests. It's like what does the American Heart Association say about the Lucas device anyway? Well, one, it says it doesn't work. It doesn't bring people back from the dead. They've been saying that since it came out. That's not even new. But the other thing that the American Heart said, but the only thing that the Lucas device has been proven to do was make it possible to transport a cardiac arrest. And so I believe that transporting cardiac arrests is bullshit. I think you should work them for whatever amount of time and then terminate it. I'm in favor of termination. I'm not in favor of transport. So, like, what do you think happens when you put? What do you think is going to happen next when you put the Lucas device on the patient? The ambulance service or the fire department or the ambulance service is going to drop this guy off, and then the very first thing that they're going to do when they get into the ER is terminate the arrest in the ER. It's like can't we just fucking do this over the phone? Okay. It boggles my mind. And I know why the fire department's doing it. I know exactly why the fire department's doing it. They're doing this because they are not they are not in the business of pissing off the people that pay their salary. Okay? That's the bottom line. Okay? They don't want to piss in their coat in their cornflakes. So you got to think about how fire departments have evolved over the past 50 years or so. Fire departments are now open to the public. They have a community room. They might do yoga in there. They might do a Lamaze class. They'll do a public access CPR class in there. They're open to the public. The people that work at the fire department are different than they used to. They don't want dumbasses that they can't complete full sentences working at fire departments any longer. They don't have any room for people that are fucking morons, but they can't get people that went to college. So what do? Well, a lot of times they send them to EMT school and they hope that we'll do something with them. Okay, and that's kind of how this relationship been for all these years. Okay, so they're not in a position to piss anybody off. You're in a position. Your job on the ambulance is you do alive, you don't do dead. So you see the conflict of interest that exists here. So I'm going to give you my version of it, and this is the way I want you to document it. And then when you document this, you need to think about who's going to read this report, and that's who you write the report to. It's not about whoever's got the best format. It's about you have to understand who's going to read it, and then write the narrative in a way to explain the call to whoever you think is going to read it. That's all I can tell you about that. That's what EMS documentation is all about. It's going to be different people at different times will want to read this report. Okay, so here's our ambulance. It's sitting in the bay, and it's AI world, so everything's really weird. They're checking off their equipment, and the call comes in. Oh, it's a cardiac arrest. So they get en route to the call, and on the scene there's a fireman doing CPR. Okay, and then, so fireman's doing CPR. The ambulance is It makes it on scene, or I'm sorry, the ambulance is now en route. They get to the call. They're doing CPR, or not, they're going to take over chest compressions for the firefighter. They're going to put an AED on while the apparently the fireman puts his SCB puts his turnout gear back on. Other these people are going to shock. They're going to attempt to shock, but there's going to be no shock advised. They'll be back. I don't know what the hell they're bagging this guy with, and I don't know what he's doing. I don't know what kind of chest compressions these are. Anyway, so they're doing chest compressions, and then here comes the ALS response. So this case, a in your area, you don't have access to ALS, so another ambulance service sends an ALS responders to your call. And let's say what were these guys doing anyway? Why would they even be exist? Why would they even exist? Well, my opinion is they should be available because they are primarily there to do interfacility transports. That's what paramedics are actually good at doing. They're not really great at running 911 calls per se. It's a lot to ask somebody who has this big drug box, all this stuff in there to go run a stupid ass call. Why not let EMT? That's what you EMTs are supposed to be doing. Okay, this guy shows up, and they just happen to have staff with the extra people, and they show up to your call, and um, they go and bring some ALS quality care to the scene. But they show up and they see that you guys have been doing adequate CPR, and they decide to terminate the arrest. So they go through medical control and terminate the arrest. So here's what happened. So you guys arrived in your BLS ambulance. All right. Your ambulance shows up, take over CPR for the fire department. Like they even need that because for the most part they're willing to do CPR ongoing. Okay, but just for the sake of documentation here, show that they take over CPR for the fire department. You do no shock advised on the AED. ALS arrives and terminates the arrest. All right. So now the question is, what's the mechanics of this call like? So now we're not putting the patient in the ambulance. So let's try to wrap our head around this for a second. What are you going to do with the body? Since you're not taking the patient to the hospital, what do you do with the body? Because they're not going in your ambulance. Because remember, we don't transport dead people in ambulances, or at least we're not supposed to. We transport alive people. This person does not fit the criteria to be transported in an ambulance. So you tell me, what are we going to do with this guy, with his body? Anybody? Yeah, you got to call the coroner. Good job. So you would call most places you'd call the coroner. Very good. All right. So now we have enough information to write this up. So here we go. We're now going to write this up. I'm working on those AI videos. I didn't give myself enough time to really figure out like how to do it. So they kind of suck. I get it. So don't hate me for the videos. I'm just trying to just kind of get it across. Okay. All right. So we're going to start up another patient care report, and we're going to call this one cardiac arrest. Okay. Again, we're going to leave this one blank. Okay, we're going to move on to the next thing, crew information. This case, you're definitely going to need two crew members on this call. So we'll add Aimer. He's a good fella. He's Randy. He's fixing to take the EMT exam. He's a good guy. And then, as always, my wingman du jour is Abdul Rahman. Abdul Rahman. Okay, so now we have a perfectly suitable crew. Dispatch information. We're going to go. This is a cardiac arrest. I want you to understand something here. Cardiac arrest and chest pain aren't the same thing. Okay. Heart attack. So if you want to call this, so what would a heart attack? I would say would be closer to chest pain, but in the past, heart attack could have also been a cardiac arrest. They're not related. I hope y'all get that at this point. Yeah, one can precede the other, obviously, but you don't have to go into cardiac arrest because you had a chest pain. You could have gone into cardiac arrest because you had abdominal pain, or you could have went into cardiac arrest because you have a headache. Anything can precede cardiac arrest. Okay, I think you need to know that cardiac arrest is a different call than chest pain. All right. So dispatch priority. It was emergent. EMD was performed. Yeah, because they gave them like pre-arrival instructions. And let's say that the dispatcher said we used card number 12. I don't know which card it is. And I'm gonna give you a little bit of kind of a preview of how this kind of the dispatching center kind of works here. Okay, next. All right, so we're back, still on Med One. We're BLS ground and was we were the first EMS unit on the scene. Okay, other agencies on the scene. All right, so we need to put in here that ALS responder, and let's just say that First Care Ambulance Service sent an ALS sent an additional other EMS agency. They were not first responders. I think that's what that means. So I'm going to put not applicable. I don't even know what that means. Okay. And then we're going to save the time. We'll probably so we'll go back and put the times in there when they showed up. All right. Response info. It was a 911 response to the scene. The response urgency for billing was immediate. All right. This was emergent. You might notice that there's emergent ground downgraded to non-emergent. When you put something like that in there, you need to explain why you got downgraded. Okay. All right. Number of patients at the scene was single. Patient contact was made. The patient was evaluated and care was provided. The crew disposition, we ended up, in this case, we provided care, back in service, care, support services. No, I'm sorry, wrong one. Let's see. Provided provided care supporting primary. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, we didn't do that either. All right. Initiated and continued primary care. Because the only thing the ALS crew did was they just called and terminated the arrest. Transport decision was we did not transport, so we got to figure out patient refused, patient not non-patient transport not otherwise listed. Again, not everybody's on board with this termination thing. Okay, if you guys only knew, like I said, if only the public understood that this was probably the better way to go instead of being okay with a $26,000 for some kind of SPLOS grant. They do this for like, oh yeah, we want every a fire truck and every ambulance to carry a Lucas device, and they cost $20,000. Okay, and so it's going to cost $200,000. I'm going to say that we're saving the patient's life. Okay, with your SPLOS grant money, but we're not. We're not doing shit because all we're doing is not doing CPR, and you're paying for it. So fuck you. That's kind of what this was kind of what this says to me. Incident location type is a home or residence. The address is 123 Elm Street. Let's make the zip code. Let's make it Tucker. How about that? 30084. It's another area that I happen to be very familiar with. Tucker, Georgia. And then we just move on. Let's see, was there anything? Okay. Type of scene delay. There was no scene delay. All right, so now to the times. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go, we got the call, PSAP call time. We were en route, and then we arrived at this time, and then we're going to arrive at the patient. So notice, I mean, I want you to notice something here. How many times are associated with us just getting to the patient? Should be a giant mystery. Like, why in the fuck do they need all this time? Why do they need all these? Why is all these pieces of why is all this data necessary to explain? Like, we got the call was received. I'm gonna come back to that. Okay, I just want you to remember. I'm gonna promise you. I'm gonna explain this to you. You're gonna understand why this is necessary. It's ridiculous, but it is in fact necessary. And again, they kind of don't care. And if it was up to me, I would say that the vast majority of this information should be imported from dispatch. Impact if your patient care report was generated by the dispatcher, this would be a whole different type of deal, you know. So it means be a different situation. So there's a huge misunderstanding about this, and I won't say this like at places that run a lot of 911 calls, like AMR, DeKalb, or Metro, or Central. Okay, they probably figured this out that that they don't. But like, what about like uh, if you're like in South Georgia somewhere, you're like, I mean, think about how many places are in this state that are covered by um, some either third service or a fire department. And I'm not calling them out. I'm not saying they're all bullshit. I'm just saying like their interest is in they're not really attracting new people at their agency. What they're doing is they're trying to get people who are probably approaching the end of their career, or if that. Basically, the people that are working there, they've been working there for probably 20 years already, right? So they don't want to rock the boat. They want to, they're almost like a time machine of what things were like 20 years ago. They don't want these people, they don't want to change too many things because their people will probably just disappear. They'll probably say, you know what, fuck this. I don't want to take this. I can't take this anymore. I can't take any more change. I don't want to do ACL. I learned ACL how to do ACLS a certain way back in 1985, and that's what we're going to keep doing. And so the experiment of EMS ended for this area a long time ago, and they're basically just staffing the ambulance with people um, who they can get or who won't leave. Okay, and so they what do? They buy electric stretchers because this is very difficult for this guy to still pick people up because he's not as strong as he used to be. He's also fatter than he used to be. So what do? They get bigger ambulances. So anyway, that's kind of the way things are. But um, the but when you work, like I said, in areas where the call volume is really high, that you burn through people like that really quick. So you don't really have the same. So we're thinking that this is a hot area. Okay. So, but yeah, so those people that are stuck in the time machine ambulance services, those guys are going to do all the stuff. Nobody made any ways for them. They just simply just keep doing this exact same thing because they only have to do it like twice a day or whatever. It's not that big of a deal. But if you had to do 10 patient care reports in a day, you'd lose your damn mind. Okay, so this is why I tell you all this. So it kind of just depends on where you work. All right, so we didn't transfer patient care. We never left the scene. And then I'm going to give it 10 minutes. So, and there's an easy way to do that. We can just add like 6 minutes here. All right. So now that this kind of gives us 10 minutes to work this arrest. Okay. And that's it. So there's your times. Okay. And now we got to put some patient information in there. So this is the incident that it still wants some information here for the incident disposition. Oh, here it is. It wants to know level of care provided, and we provided BLS care. All right. All right. So at all times, for every type of call, you should always look up, see if the patient, if this is a repeat patient. Okay. All calls require this because I guarantee you, if you're working this guy as a cardiac arrest, somebody transported this patient 2 weeks ago. Okay, that's just the way it is. Okay, I find it disturbing to know that ambulance services don't know how many people that call 911 on a regular basis had talked, but had been transported by them in the past. But anyway, this since this is disabled, I have to figure that out. We're gonna go with Smith. The last name is John. His date of birth. Let's make his date of birth. Oops. It has a nice little kind of a thing here that you can make. So it's like 1928. Let's see. So we're gonna say like January the 1st, 1958. God, this thing is so hard to freaking do. Let's see. Ah, there we go. Okay, 1958. There we go. All right, so we're 67 years old. Okay. Sex is male. He's a Caucasian guy. Next. Patient address, same as the incident address. Makes it easy. Okay, let's say we don't know who the closest relative is. Okay, so now we go on to patient history. All right, we don't know that the patient had any accent, onset, or because we weren't able to get any information from the patient, so we don't even know. Patient history. Let's say that there was a bag of let's say that there was a bag of medications there, and we understood what was in the bag, so we have some way we can put some information in here. So let's say hypertension was one of them, which is super common, right? And let's say that the patient had angina. Okay. All right, great. All right. Oops, we don't need that. All right, and then that's all we could get. And so then we move on down and uh, alcohol, let's say we don't have any, there's no evidence to suggest that is, or how about there's no evidence to suggest that that's a problem. So we blank that out. If you were in a rural area, like, like ambulance service that time forgot that's ever all over the place, right? Actually knowing the patient's doctor would make a big deal because not only do you have the same medics working there on the ambulance for 20 or 30 years, but you also have the same doctors and in many cases the same nurses. Nobody ever goes away. This is stable employment for your whole life when you work in these places and outside of the Atlanta area. All right. And I know I used to work at one of those places. I worked at a place like that for 8 years. It was kind of mind numbing to see how like little people like what all the little that was required. Current medications. So we went through that bag of medications and we found that the patient was taking captopril, a super common medication for um, controlling high blood pressure. And the patient also takes nitroglycerin. We'll say nitrobid, and we'll say on the captopril, the dose is it's actually two medications in one, by the way. So it's like 20 milligrams. It's 20/10. Uh, 20. Yeah, what doesn't really give us that. Let's see. 20. Let's say 20 milligrams. So I would say once a day, okay, in the morning. His oral, okay. And I was gonna say it's it's always good to be as good 20. It's a 20/10 because Captopril not only has a beta has a base an ACE inhibitor in it, but it also has a calcium channel blocker. So anyway, there are different formulations of it, and Captopril until recently was only given to people that were wealthy. So now anybody can get it because it's the it's actually a pretty good drug. Okay. All right. Medication allergies. We have no known drug allergies. Okay. All right. There were no barriers to patient care because none noted. The patient's complaint. The patient really had no complaints because the patient was in cardiac arrest. So for this, they just kind of want like your own words for this cardiac arrest. So his complaint is, I'm dead. We're thinking he's been down for 20 minutes. Okay. All right. Primary symptom is cardiac arrest. Okay. Uh, all right. Provider impression is cardiac arrest. Look at that. All right. Cool. You guys still with me? Okay. Secondary impression. How about we said no? But like, what's significant? Like, not applicable. How about that? All right. Cardiac arrest. Yes. And so what is that going to do? It's going to fire up another set of questions they're going to ask you. Possible injury? No. Oh yeah, should you even be working a car? Here's a question for you. Should you even be working a cardiac arrest associated with an injury? I'm gonna go with no. Fuck no. They're not coming back. You get into a big car accident and your car rolled over 8 times, or you get shot in the chest, it's over. Okay. But there are people that will work anything. It's beyond it's it has you have no idea. Possible stroke? No. Nobody did a 12 lead on this guy. Patient's not pregnant. Vital signs. All right, here's something I learned yesterday is you have to have a full set of vital signs you have to have at least one full complete set of vital signs on your patient. All right, so let's just say vital signs. We'll just say a full vital set of vital signs. So it's obtained prior to no, or it was not obtained prior to arrival. We didn't take an EKG. Um, the blood pressure was, let's say, palpated. It was 0/0. Which I don't know. There's probably got to be a way around this exactly. I'm just putting this on there because it seemed like yesterday that it wanted a full set of vital signs at least one time for this. So you just kind of put this on there. Um, Actually, let's see if we can put not applicable. Boom. We'll just do that. All right. Heart rate is 0. Pulse oximetry was 0 if you put it on there. Respiratory rate is 0. Absent. Okay, here we go. Glasgow Coma Scale. It's a 3. Okay, so it's no eye movement, no verbal, no motor response. It's legitimate numbers.
Unresponsive. So if you had to describe a cardiac arrest to an attorney, how would you find this patient? You would say, oh, for fuck's sake, this thing is not going to let you do it, is it? All right, let's finally do this. But all right, there you go. Happy. Okay, next. We didn't do any labs or imaging. You can estimate the patient's weight. So let's say that the patient's weight was 220 pounds. See, that works out to 100 kilograms. It makes your drug math really easy. All right, so what the do? Okay. All right, so it's still got some. So now I'm going to go back and look at this. So, uh, it's going to, last time the patient was known, well, let's make that yesterday. Okay. That's the last time anybody saw him normal. Okay. Yeah, I don't know why this is still giving us that, but we'll figure it out later. All right. Patient medical history. Okay. Well, minor impressions. Okay. Okay, wants more information on the cardiac arrest. So, did the person have a cardiac arrest at the time during this EMS? It was prior to EMS arrival. Date of the cardiac arrest. So we're going to say boom. We're going to add. We're going to subtract so many minutes. Okay. And it was not witnessed. And the cardiac arrest etiology, we're assuming is presumed cardiac. And so, how do you presume that this is a cardiac arrest from cardiac causes? Well, it goes back to what I try to teach you to do when you first make contact with a cardiac arrest patient. You attempt to ventilate, and then you determine that the airway was clear based off chest rise. Resuscitation attempted by 911 responder. Yep, fire department was there. Done. Date and time of the first CPR was, let's see, prior to our arrival. All right, who initiated it? I'd say a first responder. Okay. The first shock, we'll probably have to go back and fix that time, but let's just go back and add like to that. When it was not applied before EMS arrival, who defibrillated the patient? That would have been uh, that would have been EMS. They just want to know who it was. Responding EMS personnel. Okay, we did that. First monitored arrest rhythm in the patient. We don't know, so it's an unknown AED non-shockable rhythm. There was no return of spontaneous circulation. All right, the outcome was expired in the field. Okay, so we terminated. We didn't make the decision to terminate, not because we couldn't, but because we don't feel comfortable doing that. This is already very uncomfortable. It's a cardiac arrest in somebody's house. It was always already uncomfortable. We're just trying to focus on doing good CPR. Okay, so and the fire department doesn't want to ruffle anybody's feathers. So thank God the ALS people came in. They said, yeah, we do this shit all the time, and this guy ain't gonna make it, so he's dead. Okay, I mean that's as good as it gets. Again, like how many cardiac arrests should be transported to the hospital? Very, very few. Very few. All right, now we're down to the narrative. All right. Oh, actually, before we get to the narrative, let's take a look at the timeline because I know we're missing some things. Okay, so let me tell you the best way to when you're documenting a cardiac arrest. The best way to do that is to focus more on the times. So focus more on times and interventions. Focus less on your narrative. Because I mean, just so you know, like I mean, Jonathan, I'm sure in your time you've seen probably a paramedic or two, right? ALS protocols, like treatment, ALS protocols followed, or some bullshit like that. Okay, they don't, but over time, since so this was the 1980s, early 90s way to write a narrative for a cardiac arrest. In the mid 90s, when I came around, it was sort of like they were moving towards, yeah, we want to know exactly when you gave epi, we want to know exactly when you defibrillated, we wanted to know exactly about CPR. They wanted to know all, they wanted all this as data. So this particular call, the expectation is data. Um, so let's satisfy them. Okay. So 1443. So we should have we got there, we made contact with the patient at 1330. So the time for this should be 1331. Okay. So then we go, it's good, and then we hit okay, boom. All right. Now let's go back to our timeline. All right. So the next thing we initiated CPR, so we need to put that in there. So let's see, go into provider actions. Okay. So procedures, we're going to say at 1332 or 1331, we initiated CPR. Okay. Manual, as it should be. Yes, it was performed prior to arrival. We just took over for the fireman who was doing CPR. It's only fair. Was the procedure successful? No, because he died. Response was unchanged. They want to know who did it. Well, it was Amer. He did it. He does good CPR. It was done through a protocol. Okay. Boom. All right. So now let's go back and look at our timeline. So boom, we did, we started CPR. We, uh, we're using these vitals to say, hey, he's dead. Okay. We started CPR. We picked it up for the fireman. We already said that it was being done by somebody else. Okay. And then we're going to go and add, let's say, look, we're going to go ahead and CPR includes ventilation with a bag valve mask. See if we can add a medical device. Oh, I don't know. All right, cancel. All right. The so airway devices, we used a bag valve mask. Okay, boom. Adequate airway reflexes. So apnea. We had none encountered. No. Right. Leave it blank. Okay. Let's see. Um, let's add. Let's see if procedures we can add ventilation in there. Ventilation. Basic assisted mask via mask. That's good. Performed prior to the event. No, let's say the fireman was doing one person CPR. They sent just like, believe it or not, the fire department doesn't always send like 5 people in a fire truck. I've seen plenty of times when the fire department has sent one guy to a call, like plenty. Not in the cab. They have like plenty of like, but when you start dealing with like volunteer fire departments, it starts getting pretty damn slim. And so they'll send like one person, and the only guy that they could send was the only guy they paid. So like most of these people, they pay somebody to sit there and drive the fire truck to the scene, and then the volunteers show up. So it's an interesting dynamic that's involved with that. All right, this procedure attempt was one, and yes, we think it was successful, and there was no complications. Yes, it's got none there. And reason for the role, the type of person was it was aimer, it was EMT. It's aimer. Actually, let's make it the other guy because he was doing chest compressions. Boom. Okay, and we need to make this at 1331. Okay. All right. Boom. All right, let's go back to our timeline. Okay, and so we did that. Let's see. We need to put. Let's say we need to document that we shocked the patient. All right, and so let's document that. So procedures mez add AED. Mhm. And we're going to say this happened at 1335. Let's just say. Okay. I usually find all this stuff easier to do when you have the time sitting in front of you. So cardiac, like I said, cardiac arrest is a time driven like task. It's just you have to look at it and just plug these times and interventions in. And it like how much different is it for an ALS provider like myself? And then well now you got to put in like when you intubated or when you did this airway maneuver or when you um or when you gave epi or when you got IV access or whatever. You have to do all that. All right. It was not successful. The patient's condition was unchanged. Um, it said no shock advised, but that information was gathered already. Another part of the form. And again, my motto about patient care reports is this: you don't need to write it down in the narrative if it was already covered someplace else. Okay, it's redundancy makes you look like a moron. If you have to go in front of in front of a jury or a lawyer with your patient care report and you literally just said everything in the narrative that was already said in data, they already know that you're just a dumbass, and that they're just going to roll right over you in there. It's just going to be a bad time for you in there. So hopefully they're not out to get you, but they may very well be out to make you look like an idiot. Now, I will say this. Will they make you look like an idiot if you are a fireman? I don't know. Probably not. My guess is because I talk to firemen all the time and they never have been to court. Um, so it seems like they just pick on like single role EMS people, and they don't want to make the fire department look bad. The judge is worried about that, but trust me, the judge has no qualms about sending Gary Cruz up in front of a stand and making him look like an idiot. Trust me, Gary's on his own. And the good news for Gary is that these lawyers are fucking retarded. They don't know anything about what we do. Okay, CPR manual. Okay. So then we've got. Uh, so now we got to talk about the the other provider shows up on scene. The ALS provider. Okay. So let's say that protocols. Add. Let's see. Termination. All right, here we go. We can say this. All right, boom. So this was done. Um, we're going to say that this was we use this protocol, and now we have to explain it. Okay, but we didn't do it because we don't have the balls to pull that off because we're just a bunch of flimsy EMTs. We barely feel like we can drive to the call without hitting other vehicles. So it's no problem. So here we are with this report. So it kind of starts off with what you were dispatched to. So again, this is a great one to use the process. So let's go back and look at what type of blocks we're going to use here. All right. So here is um, all right. Look, we've got patient assessment. We determine if the scene is safe, determine if there's a mechanism of injury. So we definitely completed a scene size up. How far into the primary survey did we get? Well, actually, we didn't get that far. We got to number one and determined that there was no signs of circulation. So, really, for the most part, we don't have to really, we don't, there's no need for us to think about really documenting the rest of our primary survey. The only part that matters is why did you do CPR? Well, he didn't have signs of circulation. And what happened next was whatever we do. Again, the process of managing a cardiac arrest will differ between jurisdictions simply because of the quality of people that you have there. You very well could be dealing, so like, and it also depends on where you're at. So if you're dealing with the ambulance service and fire department that time forgot in bumfuck Egypt, Georgia, then they're going to do it. They're going to show up. They're going to put the patient on a Lucas device, and they're going to transport the patient to the hospital and let the hospital make the decision to terminate the arrest. If you were working in a busier climate of place, then it'd be likely that you would probably ambulance providers would probably have some mechanism of terminating the arrest. So, like if you go to look at AMR, I think they kind of leave that up to the actual employees. So there are many employees that don't feel comfortable. And as I recall from my days of working at DeKalb, I just happen to be very okay with this whole like terminate field termination thing. But there were others that did work there and they did transport all their cardiac arrests to the hospital. But for the most part, most of us identified that that was really stupid and that we wouldn't do it. So for the most part, all of us, the old DeKalb guys, terminated all of our arrests. The downside of that is that the amount of QA QI that went into meaningful qualitative analysis that went into these calls was very high, and so you had to so people actually read your cardiac arrest patient care reports there. So again, it was very high mantle of 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 knowing that. But anyway, there's not much to write here. That's all we got to say. We need to talk about the scene size up. It needs to address the primary survey and then basically summarize what else happened on the call. So there's really not much to write on this report. So that's kind of the good news. What do you write for a cardiac arrest? Well, it's really about the data. That's what anybody that's going to look at this report, they're not going to read your narrative. They're going to look at all the other times. That's what you got to focus on when you run this type of call. So who is going to read this report? Very likely it's going to be your medical director at your ambulance service. He'll probably read it. Um, I mean, look, the doctors tend to treat EMS people pretty good. They don't usually crawl up our ass about stupid stuff. Doctors are pretty cool to us. You might run into some nurse doing QI or QA at a hospital, and they want to know why they have they might have more specific questions, but that would mainly be associated with the times and stuff. The people that you work for will probably read this, and they will probably want to know about compliance with a protocol or whatever the the current norm is at the ambulance service for how you manage this stuff. All right, so scene size up. You got one patient, no mechanism of injury. Let me just put this in all caps. Scene size up. One patient, no mechanism. Requested ALS response. And then you get to go in there and talk about who they sent. They sent first care. EMS dispatched and arrived on scene at some time. Like it's nice to put that time in there. It really wasn't. It really didn't give you an option to put when they showed up, when the other people showed up. But let's just say at 13:37. Okay, nice thing to put on there because they're gonna write a patient care report too. And yeah, how many patient care reports are going to be are going to be made for this one call? This is absurd. This is like where we've gone to with this. Like again, I need to get like the government's gone crazy with this type of stuff. The fire department will write a full blown patient care report on the same system. On the same system, dude. It's the same system. They will be writing a patient care report. First care EMS, they will show up. They will probably write a patient care report. You're going to write a patient care report. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It is absurd and a complete waste of time, duplication of effort for shit nobody cares about. It's ridiculous. I blame the state office 100% for that. Shame on you. Shame, shame, shame. First patient, just one patient, no mechanism, request ALS response. And you talk about how they got there, and the scene was safe. Um, primary survey arrived to find patient with CPR with a firefighter CPR in progress. No signs of circulation. Um, continued CPR. Ventilation with a back valve mask. Okay. No shock advised. First care. EMS responded. Contacted medical center and received orders to terminate. Cardiac arrest terminated at 13:40 hours. 13:39 hours. Done. And I'm sure that could have been put on there somehow. I just don't know exactly how to put that in the times, but there's probably a way to do that in there. Okay. And there you go. That's about all I would write, unless there had some other information that I needed to put on there. Okay. Any questions? Okay. All right. Very good. All right. So while you guys are finishing this up, let me take you on a little kind of a trip about these times. So I promised you that I was going to um, show you about like where do all these stupid times come from. Okay. So let me do that for you. A deal is a deal. Okay. So dispatch center. Okay, so just to give you a little bit of background um, on dispatching centers, the dispatch. So EMS came along in the 70s. Okay, the fire department. Oh, here it was. That's what I was looking for. The the what the the fire department in those years. Actually, before 911, basically, if you wanted an ambulance, you called the funeral home or whatever ambulance service, whoever was doing ambulance services, which is usually a funeral home in most parts of the country. Again, as people have moved into more, we've become more rural. I mean, we've gone from a more rural to urban society, basically. Most people live in big cities. And so, you know, in big cities where the funeral home would not be capable of keeping up with the demand of all the stuff, police departments would actually have ambulances. So in many places around the country, the police department was that provided the ambulance service. Now they didn't have any training. They just picked your ass up and put you in this van, and they had a stretcher in it, I guess, and that was it. There was no level of care, and then if you were, and it was about the same difference if you were if you were like in a rural area, and the funeral home would show up, and they weren't trying to get there in any reasonable period of time. They weren't trying to save your life or anything. It was a job. They were basically like body movers. Okay, so so EMS came into its own, and as like an organized, like what should a person on an ambulance be able to do? And this came from the 1968 paper, Accidental Death and Disability, the Neglected Disease of Society, which is referred to as the White Paper, which I used to make all my students read the White Paper, but it just became, you know, like one of those things that we just stopped doing. It basically, if you read that document, it tells you about a different time in American history where the United States was mainly um, was a like an still an industrial nation. So in the United States was an industrial nation really until I would say the 1980s. Okay, so you had so in the 19 so a lot of so your average guy that what didn't go to college would probably end up working at a factory. And maybe his only job in life was putting on bumpers on a car, and maybe it was the exact same car for a run of 20 years. The exact same bumper on the exact same car, and that's the only thing that he did. Okay, and so that's the way America, that's the way it was for a long time. And then in the 80s, you know, we began, I mean, really began experimenting with um, like outsourcing, and so the profits were huge, by the way. And so if you recall, if you were alive in the 80s, people had like it was a very prosperous time to be in the United States. America was very prosperous in the 80s. I mean, cocaine was everywhere. It was awesome. There was it just like it was a party all the time. The things kind of tapered off over the years, and so now we're at this. So we haven't really exactly figured out how to be a post-industrial nation and do that for an extended period of time. Anyway, that's what you read. That's what you get when you read the white paper. It's really more of like a snapshot of what happened. So EMS came about, and everybody wants to say, oh, it was about car accidents. It was kind of funding was about car accidents, but actually EMS was primarily derived around industrial accidents, believe it or not. And the curriculum, that's where the curriculum came from. It really wasn't talking about managing medical patients. It was always about managing trauma patients because the reality of working in a factory is that people get injured in factories, and that people that run the factories don't take care of their people. Nowadays, I mean, you go to a factory now, and it's been a while since I ran any real calls, but I mean, we had several factories in Habersham. One was a furniture factory, and people did get hurt there a lot. Another was a chicken processing plant. Those are two big factories that we had up here. And yeah, then they were always generating EMS calls, but they actually had a staff of people. The funny part was up here, the staff at the furniture place was It was like very out. It's very dated. It was like the same person had been working there as a nurse. I don't know that they even had any qualifications. Uh, it's a kind of a weird. It's kind of funny, and I see that we're probably moving towards an era of more industrialization, but things are going to be different because a lot of the jobs are going to be done by robots. That's definitely going to happen. Robots are going to be the way of the future. So people won't be working in factories exactly. So it's not exactly a post-industrial nation. It really never got past that mantle of having to produce stuff. Anyway, so the big winners of this of the and I'll just play this while I'm talking. So the police department, so the fire departments didn't really use radio for a long time. When they first started, you called the local number for the fire department. They showed up. They rang an alarm. Um, if the fire was large, they had a way to contact the other fire departments out there to respond to a larger fire, which is a reality that fire departments have always had. They don't know what they're getting into until they get there. And the so the only people that so the people that really pioneered radio and public safety was the police department. Police departments everywhere after World War II really adopted the idea of radio. So they took all this radio technology that we had developed during World War II with repeaters and direction finding equipment, things like that, and they really actually used it to tremendous good. So here's an example of a call taker receiving a call. Okay, and then they receive a call from the general public, and then they that call is then placed to a dispatcher. So these and a lot of these older dispatching centers, you saw that they had a carousel system built in there. And I wonder if we can see that carousel in this video. So they would write so the call takers were receiving the call, and they would write down what was happening on the call, and then they would write on a card, and then they would place the card into like a little um, conveyor belt. No joke, they had a conveyor belt built into this dispatching system in some cases. And oh, because it looks like he is actually transferring this call directly to it. So this maybe so he's writing something down on some kind of machine here, and maybe it is going to a dispatch. Oh, look at that. Okay, so I have auto pin. So um, this call is now, instead of having to go through the conveyor belt system, the call is auto pinned in another part where the dispatcher is located, and so the dispatcher sees the call as it's being written in auto pin. Now this is really cool. And then the dispatcher calls the responding police department and gets the call and sends it to the squad car. And you can see them actually doing this in this image here. They'll be talking this. The next scene you'll see is the police officer will be getting the call. And so the data was all this was all done on paper and pen and paper for many years. You got to think about they borrowed a lot of this technology. A lot of this technology came from the military. So the Air Force had a lot of this technology. It's a lot of this technology was handed down to the police department, and they used it to great effect. And in fact, for all these years, the number one thing that the thing that the police departments were really the most proud of is you can outrun a police car, but you can't outrun police radio. So anyway, the call gets dispatched to the dispatching center, and then it goes, and so they have to figure out who gets the call. And so this eventually became computerized, and they call this computer aided dispatch. And we got to give the fire department credit for computer aided dispatch, because computer aided dispatch, thanks to the input by the fire department has various scenarios that are extremely predictable. So that's one thing about the fire department is they capitalize on the fact that in a lot of ways a house fire is a house fire. It depends on the size of it. They may need more fire trucks. They may need more, they may need more resources on the scene. But at the end of the day, the process is kind of the same. Someone gets there, they size it up, people go inside the house or they don't go inside the house, whatever it is, whatever it is this particular fire department. I'm used to dealing with like the cab fire department, and yeah, what do we go in? The answer is yeah, we go in. We're going in on every call. But there are a lot of fire departments evolved away from that kind of thought process. But anyway, but the fire department understands that there's a certain level of predictability that goes into these types of situations, and so they have they came up with the alarm system. So the alarm system. So eventually, the fire department's now carrying radios, and they are doing this. But we came into this while all this technology was being developed, and so EMS from day one, as an agency, has always relied on the radio system, and the 911 system was not actually not developed for anything except EMS. So EMS was developed. So not the 911 system was developed to actually get a paramedic to show up on a call, okay, and with a defibrillator and defibrillate a person back to life. And so you got to keep in mind, like why? How did they sell it to the public? They sold it to the public by. I'm gonna open up your call, Rebecca. They sold it to the public by looking at um, by saying, "Hey, like nobody really wanted the police department to get there in any reasonable period of time. What they wanted was the they wanted um, a paramedic to get there, not a firefighter, not a police officer, a paramedic, because a paramedic carried with him a defibrillator. I'm not joking. This is why EMS exists in the first place. The reason why EMS is fairly consistently from coast to coast and every place in between is because and given a public that that was reluctant to pay more money for their phone service. It costs I don't know how much, $3 a month or whatever to have access to 911. You have to consult your phone bill for this. But the whole deal was to actually get to create an EMS system where the tip of the spear was in fact a paramedic that could show up with a Life Pack 5 and defibrillate you because you went into cardiac arrest. You went to a lethal arrhythmia. And this happened. So this was kind of the emphasis of the 80s in EMS. And so so the 911 system evolved around like we've got to get Gary to this call is within 2 minutes so he can do some good. Okay, so that's what it turned into. This was what emergency was about, and there's a lot of other shows that happened on the 80s where it was about EMS and all the good work that paramedics do and all this stuff. Okay, but look, this is where, so look, you remember the call came in and you talked to a dispatcher. Well, that's what this call represents. See, that's even Detroit knew that at the time. So when the call came in, that a call taker takes this time, and then when the call was actually transferred to a dispatcher, that's what this time represents. And again, these times are a lot faster than they had been because in those days, it was either a carousel that carried a piece of paper to a dispatcher from the call taker, or it was, in that case of Detroit, which was very interesting, they had a auto pen type system where the person wrote on this thing and this machine and it wrote it at the dispatcher's office. It's pretty cool when you think about it, the kind of technology that was available back then. Now, with the digital technology, things can be a lot faster. But back in those days, that was the case. All right, so now the dispatcher has to notify you, and so when the dispatcher sends you the initial dispatch, that's what this time signifies. When you advise that you've clear on the call, then that's what this call symbolizes. Okay, that's what this time symbolizes. And look, like you might say, well, what difference does it make? It's all so. This is why do we have so many stupid times on here? Well, look, all you got to do is call 911 in DeKalb County right now, and I guarantee you'll be put on hold by the call taker. That you won't even talk to the call taker, so there'll be a delay from the PSAP call date time, and they could be delayed 10 or 20 minutes before this call is ever even received and then dispatched. So In places where the volume of abuse is so high, like DeKalb County, they will absolutely put your ass on hold. I called 911 one time in DeKalb, and I was put on hold several times. Actually, actually was put on hold, hung up the phone, and got back and called 911, and yet was yet again put on hold. So that's how overwhelming things are in a place like DeKalb, and same with Atlanta. It's the same deal. And they lose calls all the time. There's all kinds of stuff that happens with these calls at the call center. It has nothing to do with fire, police, or EMS. Like, for instance, and the only time you ever hear about it is when it's somebody we care about. So, like, if it happened to somebody we don't care about, you never hear about it. But, like, so there's a bunch of stuff that happens all the time in places like Atlanta where, like, people got shot and, um, the, um, you know, where people were shot, but you never heard about it, because it just wasn't anybody that anybody gave a shit about. But, like, lo and behold, it's on the news. Like a different person was shot at the same time. We hear about that one. So it's very like there's so much partiality in terms of what's reported. It's mind blowing, and you don't even realize this until you take a job like you work in 911 on an ambulance. But anyway, but for instance, in Deca and at the city of Atlanta, they actually a person was walking along um, that whatever that little roadway is, that little walkway thing that they have that goes to Atlanta, the Beltway, right? And so some lady was walking through some part of town on the Beltway, and she broke her ankle, and she called 911, and the ambulance never showed up, and neither did the fire department because the call got forgotten about by the call takers. So, like, there's a lot of responsibility at each and every level of this. So don't just think it all falls on your shoulders. We can, like, we're not grilling your ass. Do you think for 1 second that a dispatcher might fake these times anyway? Think about that for a second. Think about the possibility that, yeah, we fucked up and we forgot to dispatch the ambulance because we were, because we were, I don't know, I was taking a nap or something, I don't know, and there's some excuse that happens, and then they're going to try to pin these lack of time um, pin. They're going to try to increase your times or something somewhere along the way of this call, and pin it back on you. Do you think that that's something that they're going to do? Yeah, they're absolutely doing because it's all government workers, and these are like sometimes the worst types of people imaginable. They'll do anything to save their stupid $40,000 a year job. Okay, so PSAP is the time that was received by the call taker. Dispatch notified time was the time that the dispatcher was notified by the call taker. The unit notified time was the time that you were notified by the dispatcher. This is the time that you acknowledged that you received a call. The en route time is the time that you said that you were en route to the call. This is the time that you showed up on the call, and this was the time that you made access to the patient. That's a lot of times that has to be accounted for. And again, these are times that could seriously get you in major trouble if they are not correct. Okay. All right. Very good. All right. So, any questions about this? Let me close this out here and let's take a look. And why don't we take us a break? So why don't we take a 15-minute break? So why don't you guys come back and let's take a break. Why don't you come back at uh, 15:35 hours, okay? So be back here in 15 minutes. Clear? All right, is everybody back? I think it's time to do one more and we'll call it a day. Awesome. All right, let's do it. All right, the next call we're going to do is a. Let me shut my door here. All right, so now we're going to do a just a medical call. Okay, so let's kind of look at the mechanics of a medical call, figure out who would read it, who would be interested in it. Okay, let's see. No, not this one. No, I hate that one. Is that? Oh, here it is. Okay. All right. So here we are. We're back in this fictional uh, AI generated bullshit scenario they came up with. All right, so we got these two people, these two medics over here. They are talking, and they're apparently really worried about tape. And the call comes out, and then now they're clearing on the call, and then they're en route to the call, and they're still doing inventory while they're en route to the call. And for some reason, there's lights and sirens inside the ambulance, which I never could figure out. Okay, the ambulance drives and backs up into the driveway, which is exactly this is the way to that's totally the way to 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 park a vehicle in front of somebody's house. All right, and some lady comes out. She's got abdominal pain. She looks like she's pretty bad, but again, she's got clearly has signs of circulation. She's talking to you. Okay. Um, the patient, so they're they're gonna have sit down in the house and have a conversation about her abdominal pain, and they're gonna do a very off-putting like off-putting assessment, abdominal pain. But let's make this interesting. Yeah, okay, all right, and then we're back in the ER, and boom. All right, so let's just say that, for the sake of argument, that this patient is not a female of childbearing age and is having abdominal pain. If you're having abdominal pain around your belly button, what is that? What do you think that is? Periumbilical pain. What is that? let's do when you think it's not on here, it's going to be on your in your Chinese. It's going to be on your Jedi. When you hear periumbilical pain, what do you think of? On a person that doesn't have sickle cell and is not a female of childbearing age, what is that? Well, without taking any more of your time, it's appendicitis. Okay. All right. So that's what it is. It's appendicitis until proven otherwise. All right. So that's what this patient has, appendicitis. All right. And so that's what we're going for. Let's review the Chinese menu. So we have to do a scene size up. We do a primary survey, and let's look at the primary survey. The primary survey is going to amount to exactly diddly shit because she's going to have signs of circulation. She's alert. She says her airway's clear. She's going to be breathing. Let's say she's not having any problems breathing. She's got a radial pulse, and there's no bleeding. So you choose a follow-up assessment, which clearly isn't going to be a rapid trauma assessment. It's not. It's clearly not going to be nachos. It's going to be a focus history and physical exam. All right. And so we go in here, and so the vast majority of information that we're going to get on this call is going to come from the patient. Yeah, we're going to take some vital signs. What kind of um what type of what type of of like you think it's going to be? I mean, do you think there's anything complicated here? If we go to the hospital, this call is going to be very simple. Open and shut case. Veni, veni, vici. You came, you showed up, you took her to the hospital. Done. Okay, done. Let's go run another call. It's so easy. But what would make this call more complicated? Let's say that the patient refuses transport. Okay, so now we're going to take this. So we've already done this call. Okay, so let's say that we do a scene size up, a primary survey, focus history and physical exam, and then the patient wants to refuse transport. How do we write this up? All right, so first and foremost, who will read this report? Well, first of all, let's talk about this. The number one part of people that are going to be interested in reading this report will be the people that you work for. Okay, they should be the most interested in what you wrote down. Um, if the patient has a bad outcome, there will be other people. Now, what if this is just gas? Okay, and there's a good chance that this will just pass on its own. It won't be a problem, right? So you're thinking, okay, but let's just say that it is appendicitis, and and it blows up inside of her abdomen, and then she's incapacitated, and she dies in her house 3 days later. Okay, because she didn't go to the hospital. What type of people will be asking questions about this if she dies because she didn't go to the hospital? Yeah, the family's going to want to know. Right. That's going to be the first people they're going to want to know. Okay, so who are you writing this to? And I think that's the hidden message behind all patient care reports. It's not about what you're writing, it's about who you're writing it to. It could be attorneys, they could be interested in this as well. So we're going to have to document that she, like the conditions of her refusal. And so now here's the other part. Is there a history? Now, look, you guys are coming into this late, except for Jonathan, but Jonathan knows what I'm talking about. Are there paramedics who, these are the people that we trusted, right? The general public trusted paramedics to come to your house and good give you good advice and then attempt to take you to the hospital. Were there paramedics that were lazy that would go to your house, tell the person that they did not need to go to the hospital, have them sign a refusal? Are there people that were there people that do are there people that do that? Were there people that do that? The answer is yes. You are dealing with a legacy of, I would say, 25 years of paramedics trying to get over on their job. Okay. So this means, so your credibility is not established by you. Your credibility is now established by some lazy piece of shit, burnout guy that should have moved on to do something else with their life, but chose not to and stuck around this ambulance service and again, just constantly look for ways to not take people to the hospital. Every ambulance service has these people. Now I'm not saying that BLS ambulance services have people like that because they don't. For the most part, it's paramedics. Paramedics were the ones you had to watch out for. There was always in some places in some places it was just one or two. I worked at places where it was damn near everybody. Everybody. In fact, there were my policy when I worked at Hammersham. Don't tell anybody I said this, but I worked over at that place. I wouldn't let you talk to the patient if I didn't trust you. I would say this whole deal where, oh well, we're gonna alternate um, riding seat and driving to the call. That bullshit, that the stuff that they do. I was like, yeah, I'm not. Fuck you. You're just driving me around. And so yeah, because of that, I didn't work with a lot of those guys. I mean, I ended up spending that much time with them because I just wasn't going to put up with their bullshit. I mean, like if you're not going to be willing to honestly handle the call, I didn't want to have anything to do with you. So um, that's why I ended up working with like mainly just EMTs because EMTs would just go along with whatever. They didn't feel have the kind of like chutzpah to stand up to someone like myself, which is fine. But anyway, at the end of the day, this is the reality that you're living up to. So you need to prove your documentation needs to come to the conclusion that the patient that you made every effort. Okay, does that make sense? This is what our documentation needs to say. Okay, it doesn't matter. So does it really matter how long did it take for you to get there? No, it doesn't. If it took you 20 minutes to get there, does it make a damn? No, it doesn't. Uh, she didn't want to go to the hospital, and you already said that it was your opinion that she needed to go to the hospital. Does it really matter how fucked up her vital signs were? No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. All right, so now let's write this up. All right, so here we go, writing this call up, and so we're going to start us up a new patient care report. We're going to call this one refused abdomen. We're going to again leave this time space empty so that we can fill it in later. We're going to add some crew members. I'm going to put in Amer again because he's a good guy, and I'm going to put my homie my homie is Abdul Rahman. Abdul Rahman. All right, we're going to throw some dispatch information in there. Dispatch reason was abdominal pain, too easy, lower acuity call. No abdominal pain should come out as emergency. I'm sorry. I don't give a flying fuck. I'm not going to risk my life driving across town for somebody who probably has gas. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. Let's say that EMD was not performed. It's Med 1, it's BLS ground ambulance. First unit on scene, yes. Response info is 911 response to the scene. It was, I'm going to go with non emergent. I downgraded myself on this call. They can kiss my ass. I'm not driving, I'm not getting into an accident because somebody's got gas. I'm not doing it. Number of the patients, one patient. We made patient contact. As you can see, this opens up the entire realm of possibilities. Patient history, etc. Patient evaluation and care. The patient was evaluated. The crew disposition. Back in service, care, support refused. Transport decision. Patient refused transport. Reason for the refusal. Against medical advice. Now, just so you know, this whole deal, this whole art of non-transport, it's not part of the EMT curriculum. Okay, it there needs there. I would say that I don't believe that that is something that you should be able at the EMT level. You should be able to do. I mean, I think it's possible, but I don't think that. I think that you need quite a bit of experience of running calls, riding seat, in order for that to make sense for you to be able to determine. So, so in my opinion, the AEMT should only be able to tell people that they need to go to the hospital. That's what I think. I think that the system, again, Gary's magical EMS system includes uh, paramedics who, in addition to handling ALS calls, also take non-transportable calls out of the system for you, so you don't have to. They're battlefield shapers. That's what the paramedic. That's what the role of the paramedic is. You go out there and you're going to talk people out of going to the hospital that don't need to go. So that leaves you with like you're going to land on primarily calls that you don't need to that don't really require you to like make a whole lot of decisions about this. Okay, and if it was something that slipped through the cracks, you could certainly have the ability to call in and make an exception. But obviously, your role should be like you call, we haul. That should be the role of the EMT. Okay. All right. So then we're moving forward here, and we're getting more information. Okay. So the incident type is a private single. The location type is a single family non-institutional house. We're at 123 Elm Street again. Okay. We're going to say that this was in Tucker again, because why not? There was no scene delay. All right, let's do our times. All right, so boom, we start at the top. Boom, boom. We're going to say cancel. Boom, boom, boom. Arrived at the scene, and then arrived at the patient. And then we're going to say that we're going to give ourselves 5 minutes, okay, to run this call. And want some more information about our call disposition. So let's go back and see what that's all about. Now, here we go. Level of care provided per protocol was BLS all levels. Okay. All right. Fantastic. All right. So now We're going to put her name. And again, before you go and putting a bunch of information in here about your patient, you need to see if that this patient is a repeat patient. Okay. I can't say it enough. Ambulance services, like especially private ambulance services, you fucking like that's all you do is take the same people to the hospital all the time. You never run into a new patient. It never happens. All of your patients are scheduled. I mean, like you should never have to put anybody's name and stuff in there. Should already be done. Anyway, even with this system here, you can find this repeat patient. But anyway, nonetheless, this is Smith, Jane Smith, and she's an older lady. So let's just say that her date of birth is uh, 1 11 11 1958. Okay, so we'll say that makes her um, 67 years old. I wonder how many hours. Oh, it doesn't do hours. Oh, that'd be awesome if it did hours, minutes, months, days. Awesome. Okay. The patient is a female. The patient is white. Okay. The patient's. So this is the same address as the incident location, which makes this easier. All right. We don't know that they had any interaction with anybody with any major COVID or any other type of major diseases. All right. So now let's go into the history. So let's say that she had. Uh, let's make this interesting. Let's say that she's got AIDS. She's HIV positive. Okay. And so we got it from the patient. Uh, I think if a person has abdominal pain, it's always a good thing to ask about when the last oral intake was. And we'll say that it's been 1 day. She hasn't eaten anything in a whole day, in 24 hours. Okay. We didn't have any kind of weird forms or whatever. Advanced directives, didn't have anything. Didn't ask because she was alert talking to us. We don't have any evidence that she had any alcohol or anything, so none reported. Possible pregnancy, we're going to go with no. Current medications, let's find some medications for AIDS. Um, here you go. Here's one right here at the top. How do you know? It's because medications that people take that for AIDS always end with VIR. Let's see. Okay, so let's see. Xana. Okay, here we go. I already did that one. Okay, all right. Then you write down whatever they take, however how much it is they take. Let's say it's 120 milligrams. And I don't know anything about this medication. Milligrams. Take it every day. Actually, we take it every 4 to 6 hours. You guys wouldn't know this except for maybe Josh, but except for Jonathan. But a lot of the original medications that were taken for AIDS were very hard to take. I mean, like they're talking like they had to be on the schedule. They have a fucking clock and set it up. They were taking medications all day, every day. Like every 2 hours, they were taking some kind of different medication. That HIV cocktail was very difficult to deal with. And your life was over. It was over. That was it. You might as well have been dead. AIDS is tough. AIDS was used to be tough. Nowadays, they can take one medication a day, and it it's done. Things are better now. I'm glad about that because I mean, like they really suffered because some of these people, it'd be one thing if you just wanted to die, like I got AIDS, I'm gonna die. But some of these people wanted to live, man. You just wanted to help them out, and you wanted to see them succeed. Now, I mean, now people can succeed. By the way, that they cured AIDS. I don't know if you know that. Did you ever hear about the Berlin patient? The Berlin patient, they found this guy in the early 90s, I believe. He is a HIV positive, has leukemia, goes to Germany on vacation, has a real problem with his leukemia. Healthcare in Germany is very good, by the way. I don't know, like it's very good. They do socialized medicine, and it's actually quite good. And he's just a visitor, and they end up getting a bone marrow transplant at the hospital, and friggin' cures the AIDS. Done, gone. So the pharmaceutical industry propped his ass up and gave him a gag order and like kept him quiet for many years. All it would have taken for most of these people was to get a bone marrow transplant, which obviously is not going to be possible for a lot of the people that were getting AIDS. If you look at the people that got AIDS, it's probably not going to be something that was going to happen. But anyway, that's an interesting take on it. Um, let's say the patient has no known drug allergies. Okay. All right. Patient assessment. All right. So we have no barriers to healthcare. Like, what's a barrier to healthcare? A barrier to healthcare is like language, cultural. Like it could if you I've experienced all these. Okay. So alcohol use. Yeah. Sometimes people are drunk and it takes a little bit longer to get the point across. Cultural, custom, religious. Okay, I experienced this a lot in DeKalb County. We had a huge population of Muslim people from Somalia and Ethiopia and um, and from other places like Iran. There were Persians from Iran. There were people from Iraq. Um, and they all lived in one. They lived in three apartment complexes, and there was like thousands of them. And they like for instance, they have uh, weird customs associated with weird things that they do to females that which become a problem as they get old enough to menstruate, and they don't want you to look at them, and so it turns into a problem. And so these are weird cultural custom things are can be challenging. Developmentally impaired, you run into this everywhere. Drug use, you're going to run into this in most places. Hearing impaired, you're gonna you I ran into this a lot in Atlanta, so it seemed like the hearing impaired people live closer to town, or you're dealing with older people. Language barriers. Okay, obesity. How could obesity present to you with a barrier to patient care? Some of these people live in a dump. I mean, if some of these people weigh 500 pounds, their house is destroyed. Just getting to the patient can be tough. Just getting to where you can talk to the patient can be difficult. So just gaining access to the patient is that could create a significant barrier to patient care. Also, if you have to move the patient, that's yet another consideration. Physical barrier, like the person is uh, in their house and you're gonna have to break down a door. Physically impaired, maybe they're restrained because the police is there. Psychologically impaired, I've seen all the I've seen it all. Sight impaired, all this stuff. Speech impaired, state of emotional distress. You got to be kind of flexible with how you deal with this. But yeah, these are all good things to document. But in this case, that was not really a problem. The patient has abdominal pain. Okay, they want at this point they want it in your words. Abdominal pain. It's been going on for 12 hours. Okay. All right. The primary symptom is abdominal pain. We'll see if we can figure abdomen. Let's see rebound tenderness. Nice. Okay. All right. Can we move on? The provider's primary impression is pain. Okay. Let's say the patient also has nausea. Cardiac arrest, no. Possible injury, no. Possible stroke, no. No need to do a 12 lead unless you do a 12 lead on everybody. There are places that you might work where you do 911 where everybody gets a 12 lead. It's insane. All right. Pregnancy. We don't think there's pregnancy here. Vital signs. Let's to add some vitals. So you got to have to add at least one full set of vital signs. No, well, we did those ourselves. Uh, so method of EKG. All right, blood pressure. Let's say we did a automated blood pressure cuff and it read 160/90. Okay, heart rate was 110. It was electronic. Pulse oximetry was 98%. Respiratory rate was 12. Respiratory effort was normal. Translation doesn't need oxygen. All right, then we'll go into GCS. This is really important since she didn't want to go to the hospital. Can a person who has altered mental status refuse transport? In some cases, yeah. In some cases, no. So that's a little bit of that's a little bit of a little bit of a different problem. So could they actually refuse transport? Like for instance, one of the questions one of the times I've had was people who are drunk. So yeah, the average person says, "Oh yeah, drunk people they can't refuse transport." Well, guess what you can do as a drunk person? You can go to Las Vegas, you can get wasted, you can go marry a stripper, and it's legally binding. And in order to get rid of this, and so you can't just go back and say, "Hey, I was drunk." That's not good enough. You're gonna have to actually get the marriage annulled or divorced or something like that. And there's actually strippers over there that just actually take advantage of this, and they've probably been married like 100 times, and they get some kind of settlement for an annulment. It's all prepackaged deal, and they do that. So if it's legally can a drunk person sign a refusal? I would say, yeah. If the person, it depends on how drunk they are. If the person can't speak in any sentences or anything like that, I mean, impaired is one thing, incapable of signing a refusal is another. Again, how are you going to know for sure? Who can I talk to if I don't know? I would call a supervisor, but they're not really in a position to give you any real input there. You would usually have to call medical control. So you call the doctor at the ER. But I'm going to make this one easy for you. The patient has a Glasgow of 15, so no problem. So there's nothing obvious. Okay, so there's no she's not being propped up by any by intubation or anything like that. Let's say that her temp is a little high. She has a low grade fever. Let's make it oral. Hey, you know what the difference between an oral and a rectal thermometer? The taste. Okay, level of responsiveness. She is alert. We're going to give her a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10. Numeric. Stroke screen. Didn't do it. Not applicable. Actually, we can just leave that alone. Okay. Um, okay, fantastic. All right, so now we're going to hit OK. And let's look at our timeline here. I'm going to say that we need this time to be like 15:07. Okay. So let's just drop this down to 15:07. Okay, great. Now it all kind of matches up. It looks pretty good. So far, so good. Okay. Next, we're going to go to provider actions. We really didn't do anything. We told her that she needed to go to the hospital. So really, it's down to the narrative. So that's what we need to make sure looks good. All right. So now this narrative needs to say we need to start off with what we normally say. Now, look, like I said, chart, soap. So this is where soap and chart and all these other documentation formats they're useful for for a standard issue call where you transported the patient to the hospital. It doesn't really help. It's not going to help you out with a refusal. I really don't. I don't, really don't believe that. And again, like here I was. I mean, I've written this. I've done this about 20,000 times, writing patient care reports, and I'm just going to say that the chart, all these little prepackaged formatting techniques, they really don't. It's like a square peg in a round hole kind of thing a lot of times. Um, I'm going to go with, let's just start with the scene size up and just do go with that. So scene size up. There was one, set the scene up with the context. One patient, no mechanism, no additional resources. I mean, we didn't need anything. No mechanism. The scene, it was safe. Primary survey. Patient was alert. No respiratory distress. Radial pulse. Not bleeding. Focus history and physical exam. Patient complains of abdominal pain. We already covered that. We don't have to talk about it. We don't have to go into a lot of detail about it. We're just making this document make sense. We're repeating only where we kind of have to in order for this document to make any sense. This one statement to make any sense. A patient complains of abdominal pain, denies loss of consciousness, dizziness, chest pain, vomiting. Also complains of nausea. Okay, so this is when you say when these are when this is what you call pertinent negatives. Okay, so pertinent negatives are every bit as like what is it? So a pertinent negative is like okay, the patient's complaining of abdominal pain. What is the patient not complaining of? Okay, um, so also complains of nausea. All right, all right. Then we go into like what we did. Patient refuses transport. This is where you're going to need a some kind of like a category. Okay, so the category of you need some type of personal minimum human being that you'll allow to sign a refusal. Again, I don't agree. I don't think that everybody needs to go to the hospital. Okay, I'm just going to come out and say that I do not believe that, but a refusal is a document that's where me and the patient both agree or that I think that the patient needs to go to the hospital, but the patient disagrees with the notion that that the patient needs to go to the hospital. Okay, so we are not in agreement about the outcome of the situation. For some reason, the patient does not want to go to the hospital. Um, so I would not. I would only do this when both myself and the patient don't agree. Now, what would I do if we both agree that the patient the problem here with EMS is that for the most part, most ambulance services never address the possibility that the medics and the patient could both agree that the patient does not need to be transported. The only place I've ever seen that actually addressed that was DeKalb EMS. We actually did this a lot where the patient didn't want to go to the hospital and we didn't want to go. We didn't want to take the patient to the hospital. We all agreed on it, and we just signed like a statement that said we agreed that the patient doesn't need to go to the hospital. But this is not that situation. I would have never had a patient sign a statement like that in a situation with a person who's like 60 something years old that has abdominal pain. That would be a terrible idea. Um, that's a recipe for the patient being found dead 3 days, and we all agreed that the patient didn't need to go. That's liability waiting to happen. Okay, so this is not. I don't feel comfortable with that being the case. I do not feel comfortable having the patient sign a statement agreeing with the patient that we don't. I will not agree with the patient that we don't need to go to the hospital. And so that's probably the biggest problem with EMS documentation is that ambulance services typically get paid for transporting patients to the hospital. It's not in anybody's interest for ambulance services to show up on a call and not take them to the hospital. That's just the way it is. And also, let's just say, well, what about the fire department? Since they're all in charge of everything, why can't they just do that? It's not in their interest to piss anybody off because I already explained to you that they have to live in the area that they serve. So they can't piss anybody off either. All right. So anyway, but this is clearly a case where uh, a refusal needs to be signed. Okay. I would not, in any circumstance, have a 67-year-old female sign a, not. I would not say they don't need to go to the hospital if they have abdominal pain like this. I wouldn't do it. There's no way. So now the question is not, do I think she needs to go? The question is, can she sign a refusal? So I'm going to type in here my refusal criteria. Okay. This is what it takes for me to sign a refusal. If all of these four criteria are not met, then I will not, I am unwilling to sign, I'm unwilling to offer you the opportunity to sign this refusal. Instead, I will call medical control and seek to have orders to restrain you and take you to the hospital against your will. Let me just say that again. If I cannot, if these four criteria are not met, and this is only in the instance that you do not, that me and you do not agree that you need to go to the hospital. I think you need to go, and you do not think you need to go, or for you have some reason to not go. I will be happy to tie your ass up and take you again to the hospital against your will if you do not meet these four criteria. That's where I'm at with it. Okay. So this is serious business. You either sign this report, either can sign this, or you go to the hospital like a fucking animal. It's your choice. All right. So here's my deal. Number one, you better be conscious, alert, and oriented times three. Okay. Now you could be drunk and still be conscious, alert, and oriented times three. Okay. I mean, you can be intoxicated and know where you are, who you are, and what time of the day it is. That's no problem. You have to be pretty seriously drunk to forget some basic details like that. Number two, you better be capable of making a decision on your own. And what I mean by that is you better not be a ward of the state. You better not have Down syndrome. You better not have, like if we're going to a mental hospital, for instance, like I've gone to Georgia Regional and I've said, all right, so they'll have somebody in there having some kind of like day treatment, right? And the person decides they have a problem and they don't want to go to the hospital by ambulance. I'm like, well, is this person here on their own recognizance? I mean, are they allowed to leave, come and go freely? If that is not the case, then they don't get a choice. I will tie their ass up and take them to the hospital against their will. And I'm just for the record, I'm willing to tie anybody up and take them to the hospital against their will. In fact, I kind of fucking like it, to be honest with you. I like it when I have to do that. Okay. I kind of want to do that. So just keep that in mind. Okay. So you better be capable of making a decision. All right. And you better not be a ward of the state. You better not have somebody that has to sign your report. Who I think is the highest pinnacle of people that have a decision to make decisions for themselves. Again, this is where My bias will come in. Your bias may be different. Maybe you say, I like police officers. I think they have the ability to make their own decision. I don't agree with that. I think people who are employed by a government agency are capable. No, I don't believe that either. I believe that self-employed people, are the highest pinnacle of people making decisions for themselves. So if you want, if you, so I consider if you work for you could be a doctor and you work at a hospital, and I would take, and if you owned and operated a hot dog cart, I would take the person who owns and operates the hot dog cart takes higher I have a higher opinion of them than the doctor. That's the way I look at it. Again, your personal biases will be apparent here. Okay, so I can't speak to your personal biases, but those are my personal biases. I believe that people who work for themselves and do not have a boss are the highest level of people that make decisions for themselves. Okay, since we're having the conversation about this. All right, number three, the patient needed to be informed of of the risks. So you need to inform the patient that these are the risks of your decision. And then finally, number four, the patient needs to indicate that they are clear, that they understand the risks. All right, and this is the mechanics of a refusal, and it's not that big of a deal. Okay, but I don't want to do this for anybody that. Again, I worked at the cab, and we had a different way of managing people that if the medics agreed and the patient agreed that nobody needed to go to the hospital, then we had a different way of managing of disposing of these types of calls. But your average ambulance service just never got that far with this stuff. They never. It's just like the pressure cooker of where they work just never got bad enough for them to make decisions like that. That's just too fucking bad because look at what we got today with COVID and how that has left our hospital systems. And to this very day, ambulances are going to ERs and they're waiting sometimes for hours for a bed. And I'm kind of like I want to go back and look at those patients and say, well, how many of these people really actually needed to go to the hospital in the first place? You know? So I mean, I'm very unsatisfied with how things have resulted, and I blame greedy and incompetent ambulance services for making policies and procedures that don't work. I don't agree with that. It is what it is. Everybody needs a fucking job, I guess. All right, so look, patients. So that's my category. If you don't want to go to the hospital and you don't meet all four of those criteria, then I tie you up like a fucking animal. I may even sedate you. Okay, that's how willing I am. That's where I'm at with it. Okay, so and that should be your position as well. Okay, so does this patient meet all of those criteria? I would say yes. I would say the patient is conscious, alert, and oriented times three. They're capable of making a decision. We inform the patient of the risks, and the patient needs to indicate that. So now we just have to document it. So here's how a patient refuses transport. And I usually just type something like refusal criteria. One, the patient is conscious, alert, and oriented times three, which we documented already in other parts of the and other parts of the report. Two, patient is self-employed and sells Amway at home. And you might say, "Wow, I mean, like lowball piece of shit, dude." It's better is that's the highest pinnacle of people that make decisions for themselves. Okay, to take a crappy job like that, to take a crappy position like that and sell something that probably doesn't even do anything for anybody. And that's the ultimate. That's the ultimate, in my opinion. Your opinion could differ. I don't disagree. Um, I don't doubt that you have your own ideas about this, and that's okay. And you should have your own ideas. You can't go. You can only go so far without exposing your own biases. Three, the patient was informed that that she could have appendicitis, which requires urgent care at an emergency room. Okay. 4, the patient. Now, this is what I look for when I write these. I like to see that the patient has some kind of magical reason why they can't go to the hospital. So I'm fixing to blow. I'm fixing to. I'm going to lay. I'm going to lay this on you. You're gonna really. You're gonna see. The patient's going to have a really good reason for not going to the hospital. Okay, you ready? The patient advises that she understands the ramifications of non-transport. However, needs to go to the lottery office in Atlanta within the next 12 hours to redeem a scratch off ticket where she won $20,000. That's a pretty good reason, if you ask me. Think about that for a second. Just think about that. Why is she not wanting to go? She's going to lose 20 grand if she doesn't get to the ticket office sometime in the next 12 hours for some reason. I'd buy that for $1. Okay. All right. And there you go. That looks good. All right. Well, that's all I got for tonight. Does anybody have any comments, concerns, questions, considerations? Cool. All right. Well, I'll see you guys next week. Well, next week's meeting will be in person in Chamblee. Okay. And y'all can let me know in person what you think about my live internet classroom thing here. Peace. All right. Good luck. See y'all. See y'all next week.